Hello, guys. Here I am with the third part with Kassra here from the home couch. We have just dealt with Iran and also the prehistory in Germany. But I would start again with a question.
We
are both also moving very quickly in the process. We have estimated our own, or you have estimated your own father, also your mom. What are your character flaws? So if we assess someone as narcissistic or bipolar, spin or something. Kassra, Zargaran, what are your shortcomings?
Sometimes I catch myself being like my father in certain situations, so I am already carrying his burden with me. I'm quite happy about that, especially in relation to the girls. I do notice it. So I catch myself from time to time in phases where I then have a bit of an attitude of them have taken with me, but I am very grateful and happy about it, that I am aware of it in that moment and then catch myself again. And I do carry that with me, so I am already burnt like the child. You know, it's always nice. You can't 100% things that have shaped you so significantly in childhood. So don't forget, children in childhood absorb everything like sponges, and you can't always wash it out. Very, very hard, so intervene early, intervene with the children early. Grab them by the scruff of the neck, so to speak, and with the children, girls and boys, just really intervene early and take action. And at some point it's so deep you can't get it out anymore, then it's just, well, you're managing these deficits. And for me, I can't get everything out 100%, but I've gotten a lot out. And specifically what I've just addressed, what you asked me, I asked that. I resist periodically. I'm also luckily always there, and then try to do the opposite. But it's a constant development. Constant struggle would be an exaggeration, but a constant process, which I believe will not be completed until the end of my life, but rather optimized in percentage. But whether I will ever reach 100, only God knows. I hope so. I'm doing my best, but I'm a human. I have flaws like everyone else. Good and bad days, good and bad phases. So I'm trying to reach the 100, but I'm not at the 100 yet.
It's already good for oneself to say, I'm always working on myself.
That is,
I believe, a process for everyone who is also in these milieus.
Always.
To reflect on oneself again and again. Who am I? Where do I stand right now? And to improve that. I believe everyone should aim to work on themselves every now and then.
Yes, that's important. I believe it's important. My motto is always, I don't want to be at 30 as I was at 20, and I don't want to be at 40 as I was at 30. And I always try to be the best version of myself in the phase of life I'm in that I can possibly achieve. And I believe, as I said, there are phases that set you back, phases that stagnate, and phases that suddenly propel you far forward. And yes, a constant process, as you say.
We have stopped. We are going back. You rebelled so much, you want to go back to Hamburg. And yes, you arrive in Hamburg. What happens directly to the old clique, to old friends? What is the relationship at home after Iran?
It was chilly. Arriving felt so strange in my own country, more or less than in my own home. I felt very unwelcome. My father treated me even more coldly than usual. My mother was always desperate. She was always so chronically absent. I understand that. My mother was just in a constant state of despair. Still, she always tried to patch me up in her own ways. My sister, we didn't have a good relationship at all. There was a lot of competition. She always felt disadvantaged. She felt she was at a disadvantage, in my view. I was allowed to do too much, and she always had to pull herself together and function. I understand. She has a right to exist and her own issues. I can't judge because it's her perspective, not mine. But that was what she always communicated about my mother to my father. Yes, that was the worst case scenario. I returned, promptly took a kitchen knife and went out to the street into my neighborhood. I quickly met up with the guys and was then fully back in the action. Was happy, awesome, now I'm back in this negative environment, in quotes for me, but positive. And was then also still haggling. in the development in this direction, and that was then until the day X 2014. Now it's getting worse and worse in quality and also in development.
Okay, one sticks a knife in. It's a big topic today. Always again with knives. Has a big revival. Many
young people
go out with knives. There's also a world law: who goes out with a knife finds others too.
With a knife?
The probability of using it is there. I can only repeat: don't even put it in your pocket.
Anyone who carries a knife is a very fearful personality. Anyone who walks around with a knife is actually a person who is dominated by constant fears and wants to create a sense of security by having a knife. Because a person who is at peace with himself, young, old, middle-aged, whatever, but he doesn't need to carry anything because he is at peace with himself and is confident and knows who he is and what he does. And he is not in a situation where he even considers having to carry a knife. Therefore, these are already special characters who actually carry many construction sites, I'll just say it like this, with them. And they believe they could somehow compensate for this by carrying a knife because at the end of the day they don't want to get hurt. And can't defend themselves mentally and sometimes physically either, so they take the knife as a last resort and try to stab their way through, which is of course fatal. How many people have already fallen victim to this because of real trivialities? Yes. Trivialities, yes. It's dramatic, and yes, sorry, I just wanted to briefly mention it came to mind.
Right, it's your story.
Yeah.
And address the topics you want to address. But okay, out to the old gang, I'm being seen now. I wasn't up for debate either. Okay, where is my money coming from now? So what do I do now? What are the next steps?
I fully got into it. We are now like 14, 15, then I fully got into it. So then we were really so amateurless, as the North German would say, amateurless, full steam ahead, and then I completely got into street life. This attitude, and this whole attitude, there was nothing left, somehow no moral compass anymore in the sense of, I want to go to school, I want to achieve something. I just lived for the day, just acted from situation to situation, just vegetated in front of me. I would just say now, in the development, also in the way to spend my day, was with the boys, was smoking weed. I had no money. The relationship with my parents was sustainably damaged and broken. As a result, I received no pocket money or other funds. Why should they? There was nothing they should reward me for. So naturally, as it happens, you start to want more, you have needs, and there's an action figure or whatever, then you reach an age, okay, hey, I want to buy my grass, I want to earn money, I want to go to the store, I just want to make money, I want to be someone. And usually it's like this, you compensate for this non-significance, this insignificance as a person in society with money. You say, okay, I'm not cool at school, I'm not cool here, I'm not doing anything. That's where I over-define myself in society. We're all vain, we're all social animals, and I have a good school. I'm now doing an apprenticeship. Wanted to do it through money. Saw guys in our neighborhood, the older generations who made their money. There were guys in our neighborhood who earned their money legally. Others continued school, and others went the criminal way, sold coke, were pimps, did things, made robberies, whatever, from 2 and 4. For me, the latter was then attractive because it's the easiest way, and then I oriented myself in that direction and wanted to make quick money. I lacked money, and working was never an option for me, because what should I work there? I had no points of contact at all. I think I once did an internship there in my life at that time. It was still in such a supposed special needs school. And yeah, and then we started. We went into Hamburg and started to alleged major dealers or dealers who serve the whole street or the whole district and are actually known dealers. I went to Harburg in Hamburg with an old acquaintance who had moved from Hau in Norderstedt to Wedel in Harburg. He was smoking when he noticed something. They didn't know us. We went in with masks on and kicked the door, like knocking. 1 knock was 10, 2 knocks 20, 3 knocks 30, just like that. For 100 euros, you didn't knock 100 times, then it was like 10 times, and then he had to, okay, so internal communication. He pushed the bags of money through a slot and took it out. We knocked once, like something came late. We directly kicked in the door. We robbed him. We took half a kilo. We robbed Barmbek coffee shops. There was a phenomenon in Hamburg for a while. These were kiosks, late night shops with 2 bags of chips, which have been expired for 2 years, even 4 years. And sneakers from, 50 years ago, and under the table, just as a facade, and under the table, they then sold 50 bags of grass for 50 euros, or 100 grams, or for 100 euros, just consumption quantities. And then we went there, bought some for a while, and then thought, okay, why are we buying? We just rob here, and then went in, grabbed the guy, beat him up, went into the back storage, stole the stuff, or we said, hey, we want to have 500 grams or so, half a kilo. He approached, handed over an item, got in the car and drove away. So we fully got into this whole criminal thing. Was it a fixed group? Yes, we were 3, 4, 5 Swan boys, and a Kurd, an African, me as a mixed race, Iranian, Chilean. So now a little bit like, it's not about the ethnicity, it's just like that. Simply the boys were like a Turk and a German. And then we went together and pulled those things through. Pulled through, financed our everyday life and our smoking and our everyday life. We dove right in and executed the plan flawlessly, going from 0 to 100 instantly.
It's important to note that when sharing information like this, there's a risk of things going terribly wrong.
Of course, it can go down. Entering the wrong door when errand boys, now mere service providers working for higher-ups, are present can be dangerous. If caught at the wrong moment with money out, one may be shot by someone hiding in the corner. He shoots at you, they're having a meeting, he just brought his boss and we go in there. We don't see what's behind the door. We enter, the first one pulls a gun and shoots or stabs, killing instantly. It happens very quickly.
Exactly, and it's also important for you to tell, if young gangsters stumble over something like this, you always have to say, sometimes it's not about the bigger dealers losing half a kilo of grass, but it's about the reputation on the street. You let yourself get ripped off here because some then think, yes, then I'll pay you that, I'll give it back and sorry, and so much is
not. Exactly, and that's why we were lucky. Of course, we were made of steel. We were simply relatively naive and uninhibited, and also young and hungry in that instant. I would just say now, and of course also completely reckless with our lives and our health. Because at the end of the day, as you say yourself, you get stabbed in the market very quickly, even afterwards. We also thought it was still like that. They don't know us at all. There are no clues. And therefore, yes, at that age, what does the world cost? What do they all want? No idea. We are now the ones here. What do they want? We are now the young gangsters. It was all very, very misguided.
You there already clear? Okay, I want to continue this way now. Fuck this. I don't want to belong to this bourgeois working society, but I am now going the way of crime.
I had no comparison. I had worked before, and I could say, this is bourgeois, like I prefer to do this. I knew nothing else at the moment. I was immediately involved in this whole topic during my teenage years and had no comparison where I could say, I don't want this, but it was not at all. There was no option for me. It was like, this is what I want to do. I am up for it. Nothing else interests me. But I didn't judge it or refuse to do it at the time. It didn't happen at all. That's why I never had in mind that I want to become this someday, or I had a goal I want to work towards that. I would like to do this job someday. I aspire to be a pilot or an architect, like those who decide their career paths at a young age, as I'm passionate about flying and designing houses. I also didn't have any real interests. I was completely exhausted. Completely in terms of mindset, completely. Yes, how should I put it? Just such a complete mess, but...
Did you only have this group, or did you also have a sports club?
No, that happened later. That was kind of the start into the whole story. And the one colleague who later also became a childhood friend until my break then later, until the murder, ex-bag murder, we were very good friends. He then introduced me to this bodybuilding, boxing. And then at that time, I also got into this bodybuilding, pumping. And that was the first time then where I had another phase briefly back, from 7 to 12 or 11, where I played football in the club. My father was also very present there. because that was something, he enjoyed that, it was about his amusement, and I was just there in the club, that was the connection. But that was over a few years then, had then no interests anymore, and then it was just with the sport, boxing, bodybuilding, that's where I saw myself. I was always strong, I was very frail in my childhood, but then in my teenage years I became very strong. I was a person who can take a lot, even to this day. So I could always handle pain well. I'm not so sensitive to pain, I think. I recognized that and then pursued dolls. I also wanted to box, as that naturally enables self-defense on the street. The more capable you are of defending yourself, you know, the more reputation and more things you can achieve through violence and through your presence and also visually. And therefore, that was the thing that I did. If you also have a certain clientele around you, there are also these influences, and then there is the one or other older brother or cousin who is the same, but brings a completely different quality of criminality with him, and that was then the further development.
That means we were seen as a young crew, and then we saw some people there.
They have potential, let's go for them. Yes, there was of course also a group of older generations who were extremely criminal and did their own thing, and of course word spreads. And then I got to know one or the other, and was the cousin of one, was older, had 3, 4 women going on. Yes, don't get me wrong, but that's how the communication was back then. The definition had an old one, the language usage. Yes, of course, which was also so maximally degrading for the women, but that's how it was back then. And I went along to the Puffmore, still very young, but still went along, visited him. Come on, let's visit him. He is the power economist. He has the security at the door.
Do you suddenly feel important?
Of course, look, intense, we know him, and so. Of course, it's always this older relationship and looking up and being successful in the area where we are then also active, inevitably. How old were you then the first time? So like 16, we are already 16 now, growing up, age, and...
Then it was a brothel, and then there...
Exactly, door standing around. We knew him from the discos. We were very, very often on Reeperbahn. And so it has shifted from this small regional uppity group to a really heavy-hitting, highly criminal, energetic group with protagonists who wanted even more. It later fell apart, but the others eventually found their way, continuing their education. And I and 1 or 2 others stayed the usual and then also became notorious, and I thus went in this direction at a high-end level. And then we started hanging out in the brothels more often, in the security area, being out and about at the doors at night. Yes, and then the crimes became more and more serious, and the affinity for criminal life and criminal money became greater and stronger. And I still remember when I was increasingly involved in the red light district, it caught me because this exceptional position plays a very big role there. What was the fascination? Well, this recognition on the street. Whoever knows Hamburg, Hamburg is already...
For centuries.
St. Pauli's Reeperbahn is known for its red light district. And prostitution is also one of the most well-known trades here. Oldest, sure, but one of the most well-known trades here in Hamburg. The red light district has been infamous for decades, as you know. And anyone who's a bit involved in Hamburg's nightlife will inevitably have some overlaps at some point. Be it an employee or someone working nearby who knows the pimp or hustler. So in retrospect, it was only a matter of time before you somehow got involved there. And I was always like, yes, even back then, very communicative. And then I met a woman who somehow liked me. She was still very young herself. She got involved at a very young age. So it wasn't a 30-year-old growing up with a boy, but she was very young herself. Most girls get into the job between 18 and 21. That's the typical age to start, and she was about that age too. And then I was also mature in the sense that I exuded a lot of self-confidence. So I wasn't the typical 16-year-old who was still, I don't know, into Linkin Park or whatever kind of music. I exuded a lot, yes, sophistication, a lot of experience. So I wasn't a typical 16-year-old. And actually, I've also read, yes, at 16, I was already mature. I wasn't an average 16-year-old like Gerd from then on, or Stefan from then on. But because of the experience I had, and also this self-satisfaction and self-righteousness, you naturally have a completely different aura, radiation. I was a completely different person before I met her. She pulled me into the pimp life. She then said yes, and so she does this here, and she liked me. Then we met, went out to eat. Yes, and then at some point she was my first old lady, as they say. The first woman who then prostituted herself and then gave me the money. You were incredibly proud of that, yes? Now I am someone. Now I am someone, and now it starts, because I knew you have the money. And there it wasn't just like a few €100, which we shared each time, or maybe €1,000 or 1,000 marks, but then it was daily. Really steadily increasing revenues, which you then made by doing nothing. And then the quality was completely different. And then, of course, you know, how strong the attraction of money can be. And then I was swallowed by the black hole. And then I fully got into it. And I wanted to come back to that one sentence again. You had asked earlier, did I then catch it? Now, who am I? For me, I was successful here. I do my thing, I'm making money somehow, I'm recognized in my environment, maybe...
Also this thought, everyone thought I will amount to nothing. Everyone...
I thought I wouldn't succeed, but look at me now, doing my own thing without having to be in school. And for
me, my
definition back then from the perspective was, I am successful. I'm successful and someone here, let's depart. And that was still the case for many years. And then I was fully involved in the red light district. In there was once a second woman, a third woman. In the meantime, I was in custody again. I was then with one.
I would make the leap now.
Once again, very briefly, I would opt out.
I would like to touch on the red light again. Now we hear a woman, 18, 21 years old. Do you know what happened to the woman?
Not at all. I hope she's doing well and she managed to get out of this whole milieu, but I couldn't even say her name correctly. I believe I don't remember it anymore.
Look, you can, so only what you see, so it's an absolutely destructive business. We've discussed this openly and honestly before.
Beyond the...
It also changes the man who plays the pimp, and that also changes the woman who is in that milieu.
Isn't it? Definitely. So first of all, we need to focus on the woman. So much is destroyed, physically as well as mentally. So my experience is, and I've done this for many years, no woman who eventually leaves this milieu and does it for a long time has a healthy relationship with men. It is sustainably and maximally destroyed. And the perspective on the male gender is very, very sustainably disturbed. First of all, just to that, because the woman is there who also exercises in action on behalf of the man or in the will of the man. And of course, the man also has, of course, it also sounds purely away. He, of course, also has a sustainably disturbed relationship with the woman. So for him, the woman is the goods. For him, the woman is a donkey, is a horse, an old one. And she's a means to an end and something like decency, pride also towards the woman and
also dignity.
And everything that makes up a person completely falls flat there. It's just a means to an end. The woman is seen as a tool to enrich oneself economically. And of course, that destroys the mental state towards the female sex just as much as it does in the woman. I specifically said the woman again because the woman is the one who performs the act and deals with all these Johns and also carries it through and executes it. Sure, there are always people here. There will certainly be a comment here and there. Yes, oldest profession must exist. Yes, but drugs have also existed for centuries. But for me, the state's legitimization is not a valid argument. Alcohol is also legal. It's also a destructive drink, which has already destroyed many, many people's lives and also killed and caused suffering to other people under the influence of other people's alcohol. Therefore, that's not a valid argument. Now, taxation or recognition doesn't make it any better. It's actually much worse. It's actually much worse. And because we now also have people on the internet, and I'm going there again, I've mentioned this before, we also now have people who generate and create content from this area, and they try very hard to normalize and trivialize it. And they say, yes, I'm just this, and I'm just doing that. That's very insidious. With a kind of sarcasm. Exactly. And then they say, yes, I only do room rentals. Yes, that's how it is, you know. I also only sell just the cutting agent for the stuff. What is a dignity? And the other doesn't exist either. Yes.
And you have to say it, there are some actors there in the
Internet with
very, very large reach. When you read the comments, of course, and so, yes, I want that too. How do I get there? What can I participate there?
great ends.
Or how do I pose a woman? Well, posing like this is...
And now a very important point, and this is a very important point. Ask yourselves the question out there. Let's just not mention any names now. You know who we're referring to. No need to mention names. It's silly. I've done it before and don't need to repeat it. These people also have families. And one or two of these people also have children, specifically girls. Ask these people the question, would you let your own sister work in your own shop? Or would you like your daughter to work in one of these shops where only rooms are rented? That's the question. And I'm curious about the answer. And I definitely know the answer. And the answer will be security. Either it will be a physical answer that will be to your disadvantage if you ask this person that in nature, how do you like talking about my family? A single slap is still harmless when there's just one boom, boom, boom. Or one won't even respond to that. One will just suppress it. You just have to keep that in mind. That is insidious, hypocritical, deceitful, and dishonest. And it's a life, I don't know. Of course, there is also an exception. Everything is nice, and it's nice, and one has a family, the other doesn't, and it's nice. I don't want to support my family with that money.
I even have people, even the milieu was pimps or in organized crime, even the men said they wouldn't wish their life even for their own. Exactly.
A famous interview featuring Aygun Muçuk is often referenced, with people remembering only her name. Aygun Muçuk was a former member of the Hells Angels in Gießen. No child of sorrow, nonetheless, he did not deserve to be executed. He was executed a few years ago in the truest sense of the word. And he also did a well-known interview on another channel or another medium. And there he is asked quite openly, because he has children. Do you wish for your children's life to be the same? Or do you wish for the life you have for your children? And there is the answer, no, never. He should go to school, he should do that. You must listen to the people out there who always celebrate it, calling him a man of honor and saying, great, great, great. Even these people who lead this life and sell it so well to the outside don't want their own children to lead this life. Why? Because they know what a disgusting and contemptuous life it actually is. And there is nothing of honor or pride or dignity. And that's why I find it so difficult when there are fathers with the girls somewhere, whatever, suggesting a great happy family, and we are so great, and then their main source of income are some models, some locations which offer this service, and they earn their money through it. You must ask yourself, and this question must be asked, finger in the wound, friends. Would you want your daughter to also work in such a place and prostitute herself there if they freak out? If it's harmless and great, then it must be okay, right? And I believe me, friends, a slap would still be the nicest thing that would happen from such people. If it would on the internet, you would definitely be warned or whatever. But you know what I mean? You know what I mean? So, guys, keep your eyes open. Whether you're celebrating or not, you don't have to celebrate me. It's not about me. It's about the general state. And we agree that it's not honorable to enrich oneself on the backs of people who sell their bodies, and everyone gets one there. Even if I had the chance today and I was such an asshole myself, and I'm very sorry for that, and that's a point I would very much like to erase from my biography. Among other things, I wouldn't want to accept the money. I wouldn't finance my children, my family, my wife, or my livelihood with such money. That's filth, and there's nothing honorable about it, so that's very, very important to me.
Taking someone else's lead money to then buy your own daughter or sew a unicorn cap or a toy car, that just clashes then. Now you said it, the first woman came, but were you a couple?
Yes, of course, that's usually the relationship. So I'm of the generation, of course it's like that. I'm the man, she's the woman, I'm the pimp, but still we are a couple. It's very, very toxic, very unhealthy, everything also very sick. But that was the definition. I wasn't a typical listener who claimed to have numerous women in their life. But it was always like that for their understanding, for our understanding, such a hypocritical relationship. But ultimately, it was certainly an economic factor. and I wouldn't have gotten together with her if she had worked at the Aldi checkout. That has to be said very clearly. And she wouldn't have gotten together with me if I had been some guy who flipped burgers at McDonald's or was currently training to be a retail salesman at Obi or something. Therefore, it's a symmetry from both that then leads to both of them taking this path. Then walking together always requires two people, which must be clearly stated.
When the first money comes in, there are still 2 or 3 people supporting you. One person says,
Yes.
Slowly makes a name for himself, which is very important for many, especially in the milieu, particularly in the distillery or Keys Hamburg, name. And then you already said, then later a second, third woman was added.
At the peak, there were 4. That was the main time.
It's always uncomfortable. I've been criticized for it too, and Kassra has been criticized too, and I think now I'll let my double standards out. I criticize Kassra even though I would have, out of a certain arrogance, an old one.
Hyperbole video.
Money is still a factor, we can't do it here.
Ignore it, because
it's always quickly perceived when we talk about money as if it's advertising for it, but it is indeed a money machine.
It's a huge industry. It makes billions in turnover. The porn industry makes billions in turnover. Prostitution makes billions in turnover. It's not taxed for nothing because the state has understood we can't prevent it. So then the state should benefit a little bit. I understand on one hand. On the other hand, yes, these are the topics that are open, which we have already talked about. We don't need to repeat it. So of course, and I am naturally very far away to advertise for it. On the contrary, I am very, very far away. But the fact is, you say it too, it's part of it. It's a huge sales factor that plays a role, and it's all about the money.
It's
just about the money, and it's just that someone comes along, it's a service that's being offered, and it starts with certain amounts that can also lead to a lot of money being generated, and accordingly, it's just about the money, nothing else.
And at this point, then you are 16, 17, 18, is that correct?
Yes, that was likely a short period of incarceration at that time.
Okay, incarceration, we'll get to that shortly. That means quick money comes in, it gets invested in luxury items or lifestyle or exactly. But you live at home? I still live at home. You live at home, you're on the neighborhood as a pretender. So that is, one must first...
Picture, so...
I'm a very, very visual thinker. I imagine it's somehow like this. You are out at night, then you come across it goes into his children's room.
Nope.
And was just somehow pocketed the cash that's so real.
Totally clear, and it has nothing to do with being a child anymore. You're not a child anymore. So childhood is there when you've made this step. You're not a child anymore. The psyche is already like that. Everything is already so corrupted at that moment, and you are surrounded by spirits. Childhood, it completely disappears there. Sure, you're still the person with all these packages, but you're not the person you once were when you started in this nursery. Do you know what I mean? It all goes this way. It was actually just...
a bed, right?
Well, there were already, of course, a table, a bed, but there are no action figures anymore and no Superman posters or something as you would. Or at 16, what do you have then? Back then, posters cost around 50 cents. Many boys from my generation hung the famous Live by Grand Tupac poster. Yes, he's a famous hip-hop artist. The picture is a well-known graffiti image that was featured extensively in Bravo Hip Hop and other places. People would hang it up everywhere. I didn't have that. It was really Spartan because I lost interest.
In the 16th, 17th, and 18th centuries, even when out in the neighborhood, it wasn't clear what a 16, 17, or 18-year-old pimp wanted there. Nobody had anything to give away, so other pimps would question why he had women with him.
Running around or what?
Did you protect this machinery?
Sorry. I was a person who was also very quick. I still understood that I get through with violence. That violence is a big aspect, and I am one who could always defend himself during that time. I noticed I am capable of fighting, but became fond of fighting at some point after I had this moral barrier, which I still had at a certain point. I told you that it didn't really make fun, but then... So at some point it also breaks. And accordingly, I noticed I can get through with violence, I can assert my goals, and of course that gets around, even as the youngest boy like that. And then you have to, yes, come here, man, this is the boy here, come here, that's cool. And so that's how it was the whole time. And that's how you are then promoted by older ones. And there was no jealousy, you are not even on the level they are. That would be embarrassing. So that wouldn't work at all. How can someone at such a young age be at the level of someone who has been
For 30 years.
doing his thing? But rather it was like, yeah, come on, those are the young guys and so on. You get used to it. He's stressing you out, but carry on. Give him one, and then you're the boy with that, and that's how it works more. So you're more of a useful object that's a bit courted and also used and posed. One also thinks, for the viewers out there, in the red light is such, this umbrella term, posing, is a term that is used a lot also in manner and attitude. And also a way of dealing with each other. That means manipulating, lying, pretending, tricking. This is done towards women, also towards men. Men are just as posed by other pimps or by other people. It's just called something else, but it's actually the same.
So I would ask you, this is not supposed to be a guide, but it has to do with protection.
Also for the
Parents, or even for girls or boys who see this. Can you give an example of how a woman is forced into prostitution, for instance?
Firstly, it starts there. Such people who are pimps and who also earn money from pimping for many years are people who have social intelligence, who can certainly appear very confident, can be very eloquent. So eloquent in the sense of, we're not talking about technical terms, but they can unite people for themselves in the way they talk to them. But not everyone, but a very specific category of people. And they notice, they smell weakness. They notice when a person is not firm in their being, especially the female gender, and they take advantage of this weakness. Above all, it is not a weakness, but it is something human. Humans have both strengths and weaknesses. And they just take this weakness, especially in the area of attention, love, so it's very insidious. They actually use the woman's need for attention, for warmth, for affection towards the male counterpart, and the need for a relationship to experience love. They used to get her into prostitution. That is, they suggest to this person love, affection, attention, security, and usually these are then such women who have this classic...
Perhaps even financial aspects.
Yes, it's more like that. It's more about this interpersonal basis to always make these people compliant for themselves. That comes later. It involves manipulation on a deep level, which is truly disgusting. You just use all these needs of this person for yourself to then also manipulate them, but you go all in. I love you, you're the best, come on, let's build something together. Let's walk this path together, I'll do this and that. We save up for it, and then we create a beautiful future. And at some point you stop and you start your own shop. That's the classic, it's with...
Me, really, it is...
And then you open the shop, or we'll open a brothel ourselves. Play the role of a mom. As a woman, you understand how to handle women and can get yourself a nice car. And then during this time when this is happening, it won't be from one day to the next. She gets into prostitution. That's very unusual. Sure, it happened, but usually it's not like that. And he is also economically stronger. That means he is also the more dominant part when it comes to the economic aspect. It makes a big difference. They say don't underestimate and then go out to eat with her. There is a nice Versace or Gucci Testify that was there back then too, and then comes with a nice Ferrari and then always shows how great everything is and walks through the store with her and look here, and the women, hey, and introduces her, and another woman is introduced, the woman introduced so great, and Rosie talked to her, and Suzanne chat with sit down, I go down, I come an hour, me off, and I am the boys consume. Yes, no problem. And that's quite likable. There is cake and clover, and I put it out, and by the way, in the next room there are some fallacious or coitus, you know what I mean, services that are being performed there. And everything is... Actually, it's very obvious, but this human need that this person carries with them switches that off. You know, emotions usually switch off the brain, and unfortunately it is... Then the case where then it makes then, at some point in this phase, it clicks with the woman and then comes the sentence. Why not try a day with Rosie since you two get along? Give it a trial run. That's great, you don't have a problem with that. She's very sweet. Then she says, yes, Rosie is actually a sweetheart. Yes, okay, everything's clear. But only with Rosie, okay? And not alone. Yes, okay, everything's clear, and bam, you're in. Then she sees the money go across the table. The first 2 times won't be so great. Then maybe for the first 2 days there will be a lot of crying because she's suddenly having sex with strange men and it might not always be so nice. So in general it's sick, but then you won't be treated nicely either. There are men coming and they don't caress you, but everything is very sick, very rough. Come here, you are a piece of meat for the people. You pay, you will have it, and it doesn't matter how you feel about anything. Partly you also find guys hot if you are somehow very fearful as a woman. People and men find that very trendy too, but then there's also, the first thing you do is the worst. The door is broken open and then you're in and then it's running and then you're one of many then, more or less. And then the money is picked up regularly, daily. It used to be weekly, now it's daily, and then it's happened to the girl first, yes, and then door and hinge open for every other shit.
So listen very carefully here. It's a guide that works nationwide, Europe-wide, worldwide. That's exactly
the scam for decades.
Yes, and that is, there are really people who have fallen heavily for it. I know some myself, who after half a year, after 3 months, didn't know how to get out of it. They were presented with it exactly like that. It's one-to-one, more original, more 100% is not possible than what Kassra just told, because the way out afterwards, you are then, a dependency is also has to do with violence. And I know a lot of women, and you know what remains after 10 or 15 years of prostitution? Nothing. Nothing, not even if they keep a handbag. It has to do with drugs, alcohol, and so on. There are very few who I know have managed to get a little money out of it. In the end, is the soul is broken, body's broken, and there is not even money.
There's time lost, and usually it is then like you then usually start with 18, 21 in the job. Mid-30s is then a bit of a run out. Don't get me wrong, an outgoing model out there. The boy notices it if you are still with him, and usually you jump from woman to woman, pimp to pimp, seeking new experiences. The new one might be more charming. You may have had negative experiences, possibly physical violence from the pimp, or it doesn't work anymore. It's like a relationship. You see another who seems different and kind. You are drawn in, distancing yourself from the old one. So distance is a payment of money. So this happens among the boys, and then you are with him, and then there are already several stations that take place, so it does not always mean that it is the same one, and then you get out and it is always... So to this day, Philip, I don't know any ex-prostitute who has somehow profited from it, built up something huge and says, okay, yes, it was worth it. I have now built an empire. I am self-employed. I have 5, 6 stores, built a villa or whatever. The rule is the man eventually goes through, leaves the woman standing. Either they do it together for many years, or she has again whatever. Like the pimp, during the phase, he repeatedly repels her until she stops. I also stop. She's past her peak and doesn't generate as much money anymore during this certain phase. That runs a bit in the back. He is getting older. You are becoming so unattractive. You are also becoming for the men in these brothels. And so... yeah, okay, all clear, I'm gone. He leaves you standing and lying, takes the next one, or already has her and you're gone. You stand there with nothing. You're a mental wreck. You've achieved nothing. You stand in your mid-30s, early 40s there like a heap of misery. You're broken, working at night, working at night. Alcohol, coke, and in these stores there's always drinking and snorting. Yes, the stores want to make sales. That means you're supposed to sell champagne. You're involved 5%, and then you're just drinking, then you're half drunk there. Also the actor, just have to have sex with the men. Then coke. At some point the coke comes in addition, in phases, and you're also... mentally, yes, also, you're also not healthy. This whole milieu makes you sick and broken, and then... you're in your mid-30s or early 40s with no job, no skills, and end up working at a supermarket cash register in the worst case scenario, and don't get me wrong. The boy you did that with comes in with the next old woman driving a Lamborghini. You sit at the cash register and get paid 12, 18, 14, or 10 euros an hour, and you're broken and goodbye. So you're just an object that's used and thrown away when it no longer fits. That's why, again, out there for you too, Philip described it well. It's nothing worth striving for. There are no winners there except those who run their own lives. They are the big winners, if you can only call them winners, but in economic terms, they are the only ones who benefit from it. Meanwhile, numerous protagonists profile themselves and create content about it. Create and generate and now market it as whatever, as great and likable, and hold it a bit like that.
Their private life.
Into the camera. There's no need to be afraid. Many people play with and cause suffering, even enriching themselves at the expense of others. And I recently saw I also look around the world a bit, a podcast with two guys. They talk from their past and what they have experienced and find everything so cool. Everything is so cool and funny, and say, yes, talk about old pimp generations and say, yes, he was a legend, that is a legend. As if that were some person who somehow saved 20 people's lives, even though he actually only abused 20, 30 people in his pimp career to enrich himself financially and disturb them afterwards.
Or some of them you have to look at who then walk around the neighborhood with their blue sunglasses and then show where they once had a store and then also live in the neighborhood in their one-room apartment. So that's...
It's good that you say that we now have current examples. The beautiful Michael hanged himself a few years ago, 2-3 years ago. He hanged himself. He was one of the biggest pimps, or the one who had the most women walking around in the 80s. The Nutella gang back then hanged himself. Stefan Henschel, also actually well-known pimps from the 80s, also hanged himself in the crack, quite miserably decayed. Got a lot, had to be invited to drinks afterwards. Thomas Bourne, also known as a thug, was not too old, but also earned his money through this red light, also somewhere very similar, fell over in his small apartment with a heart attack, all alone, has children and so on. I don't want to overstep, but that was his career. Very few individuals are at the top of the food chain, drawing money from it. The rest end up either in jail, dead, or worse off. Lonely and penniless and in some social housing, that's the reality. And all that, what is now on the internet, last sentence on the topic, Philip, what is now being so nicely prepared for you on YouTube. Guys, use your heads, make the effort. You all have been gifted a brain by God. Question things. It's not real entertainment, but something is being sold to you which is not really what it is. And question it. And as I said, we come back to the question, would the guy who does this, his own daughter, want his own daughter to work in one of these shops and offer her body as a service? And I think you all out there know what the answer is. Therefore, be honest with yourselves. And yes, don't take this as a role model. Take it as a warning that this is not a nice thing.
Kassra, many thanks for this excursion into your entry into the red light district, also for the insights and for the real talk, what happens there, also with you and with the women, with the men, what is left there. Thank you for this openness. Thank you, Thorsten, also behind the camera. Thanks for being here. Feel free to leave a thumbs up or down and comment. For those who just want to spew hate, I wonder why are you watching this video? So everything's fine, thank you, and we'll see you in part 4, folks. Over and out.